Alrighty, guys, how's it going? Uh, got some videos for you today. I'm sure everybody's heard about the I.C.E. officer involved shooting in Minneapolis. Um, to give you the 40,000 foot rundown, there was rioters and protesters blocking a road, as liberals love to do. Um, in what looks like a residential neighborhood. So this wasn't, downtown anywhere. This was a residential neighborhood that this lady decided that she wanted to block the access of immigration uh, employees from conducting in. She wasn't the target of any operation. She was just, a concerned liberal that was trying to fight off the fascists. Um, Long story short, an officer got out of his car, walked up to her, tried to pull her out of her car, in which time she backed up, cut her wheels to the right, which is important, cut her wheels to the right, and tried to speed off. There was a officer directly in front of her. When she decided that she wanted to do this, he opened fired in her vehicle and killed her. I'm going to show you the video of that occurring. So, read your screen. This is from NBC News. It does involve an officer involved shooting. So if you don't want to see it, it's going to be about 2 minutes. So let's get into it.
No! No! Shame! Shame! Oh my
And
God! What the f-
smashes into
What
those
the
cars over there.
You just what the f- did you do?
And that's the extent of the video. As many people know, a vehicle is considered a deadly weapon. She pointed that vehicle at an officer who was in front of her, and hit the gas. So much so that when she lost control of her vehicle, she smashed into two other cars, pushed one car into another car. So she was moving at a high rate of speed, with intent. Um, Her intent clearly wasn't to get away. Her intent was to block the road. She wanted to be that problem. And when she was confronted and lawfully detained for doing so, um, she decided that she was going to use her vehicle as a weapon and learned the consequences of doing so. So I want to get into some of the nuance of the situation, because as you saw, this was a 30-second clip, and a 30-second clip does not, a lot can happen in 30 seconds, as we've seen. In 30 seconds, we have the argument of, was she breaking a law? That's the very, very first thing. Was she breaking a law for the officers in question to approach her? My statement, which will be, I'll go and back it up, is that yes, she was obstructing federal process. At the very crux of it, she was obstructing federal process. With her obstructing federal process, she decided that she was going to commit other crimes, any number of traffic crimes, right? She decided that when she was stopped by law enforcement, that she would flee law enforcement. That's illegal as well. Fleeing and eluding is illegal. She decided that she was going to use her vehicle as a battering ram. I don't care what the arguments are in favor of her. She used her vehicle as a battering ram, and that's illegal. It doesn't matter how scared she was. She wasn't scared to park her car in the middle of the street and stand up to the fascists, right? So she knew better. She knew what was going on. Um, Decided that she was going to proceed with that course of action anyway. And unfortunately, now she has suffered the consequences of her actions, which you can say are extreme, but if the shoe were on the other foot, 9 times out of 10, everybody that's going to criticize this would have done the exact same thing. It is not up to a mob to dictate what the US's policy is going to be on immigration. I don't know where us as a society have gotten that in our head, but that's not how this works. Everything the ICE officers are doing are legal. Everything she was doing was illegal. She's in the wrong, they're in the right. A confrontation happens. The authorities deal with the situation, and that's how it is. Honestly, I don't care about what the ins and outs of the legalities and all the armchair lawyers that are going to come in here and say, oh, blah 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 blah. I've already seen it all, so you can save your breath. When it gets down to the crux of the situation, she tried to kill an officer, whether intentionally tried to kill an officer or through her own negligence put an officer's life at risk. That's what happened. There's no getting around it. So what I want to take you to is, first off, it's 18 USC General Statute 111, which says, because I looked this up, what is assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers? Forcibly assaults, resists, opposes, impedes, intimidate, or interferes with any person designated in Section 111.14, this title, while engaged in or on account of the performance of federal duties. So that's a whole lot of words to say that you're trying to stop somebody from doing their job. That is exactly what this lady was doing. There is no, she wants, there is no, oh, I'm protesting. You don't protest with a vehicle. You don't protest with deadly force. You don't protest by trying to stop somebody from doing something. Your protest ends at the second you're impeding somebody from doing something. Okay. And here's kind of where it stops being, a issue of rights and protesting and starts becoming assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers, right? She did not have any intention of making her voice heard. She wanted to use her vehicle as a barricade. And then when stopped, now that it's a traffic stop, they are stopping your vehicle. You don't get to just leave a traffic stop. They don't know what her intentions are. She obviously doesn't like ICE, otherwise she wouldn't be parked perpendicular on a highway or on a residential street, right? She didn't care about any of that. She decided she wanted to make a stink because, I don't know, she felt like a social justice warrior that day. Forcibly assaults or intimidates any person who formerly served as a person designated under Section 1.4, blah 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 blah. Yeah, that's irrelevant to this matter. Let's look at Section 114 of this title to see who's designated as a law enforcement officer. Protection of officers or employees of the United States. Whoever kills or attempts to kill any judge of the United States attorney or assistant attorney, blah, 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 marshal or deputy marshal, or person employed to assist such marshal or deputy marshal in officer FBI, DOJ, which is what ICE is, or HSI is what ICE is. Postal Service, blah 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 blah. So that's section 114 that defines what I just talked about in section 111. Now, according to section 609.066 of the Minnesota statute, because this is where this happened, is Minnesota, let's look at authorized use of deadly force by peace officers. So even if you applied them to state law, which they're not, deadly force defined. The purpose of this deadly force means force which the actor uses with the purpose of causing or which the actor could reasonably have known creates a substantial risk of causing death or great bodily harm. Okay? Now, this applies to both the officer and the suspect in this situation. Everybody's calling her a victim. She's not a victim. Maybe she's a victim of her own stupidity, but I'm not here to debate that. She's a suspect. She committed a crime, was attempted to be apprehended, and fled. Deadly force, the intentional discharge of a firearm, all that fun stuff. Legislative intent, use of deadly force, notwithstanding provision of section, use of deadly force by a peace officer in the line of duty is justified only if an objectively reasonable officer would believe, based off the totality of the circumstances known to the officer at the time and without the benefit of hindsight, that such force is necessary. This goes back to, George Floyd, Derek Chauvin. At the time, Derek Chauvin believed that what he was doing was relevant to subdue George Floyd, and so did every other officer in that situation. So that I disagree with what happened in that case, but this is a clear cut use of that law. So a officer in the line of duty justified if an objectively reasonable officer would believe, based off the totality of the circumstances known to the officer. That means that's a bunch of fancy word to say due regard. You must use due regard for the public and for the situation at hand. It's something that gets taught to us in EMT school from very, very baby EMTs. When you drive an ambulance, you have to drive an ambulance with due regard. You don't just get to fly through intersections doing 80 miles an hour because you have your lights and sirens on. Due regard means you're asking the public for permission, right? So you can't blow it out of proportion because there's no automatic trigger to when you get to do something. In this case, we're talking about a shooting. The video that I saw, that we just watched together, the officer was directly in front of her, very, very close proximity to her car, because they were doing the circle around, and he walks around this way, he walks around this way around the car, and the other officer walks up to the door. She probably did not see the officer in front of her. That's going to be my saving grace. I'm going to give her that out. However, she reversed, which there was a person behind the car. So she tried to assault that person, or didn't assault. She did assault that person, and then put it into drive and turn the wheel, which one could argue that she wasn't trying to run the officer over. However, she did not turn the wheel enough, and the officer was still in front of the car, and she gunned it. And she gunned it so hard that when she was shot and lost control of her vehicle, she smashed and totaled another car. And that car pushed into another car. So that's how much force was behind that vehicle when it stopped. And it was only like 200 feet from incident to incident. So now that we've defined what impeding is, or what that is, the use of deadly force, Let's now look at we've looked at what a dangerous weapon is. Let's share that tab. So a dangerous weapon means any firearm, whether loaded or unloaded, any device designed as a weapon capable of providing death or great bodily harm. We've established that a car is a deadly weapon. So she used the deadly weapon in while fleeing a law enforcement officer, and then used that deadly weapon to threaten, it's either you get out of the way or I run you over. That's the threat, right? Um, and it's likely to produce death or great bodily harm. You get run over by a car, let me know how you feel afterwards. Now, let's look at use of force. Use of deadly force and prohibited restraint techniques. This is from the Department of Justice, who covers their agents. This kind of training falls onto the agents in this situation. All right. Law enforcement and correctional officers, the Department of Justice may use deadly force only when necessary. That is, when the officer has a reasonable belief that the subject of such force possesses an imminent danger of death or serious physical injury to the officer or another person. So, all that's to say, what did that officer think when he fired his gun? Did he think, oh, I'm going to get run over by this lady? And I'm going to get pinned up in between another car and a light pole? Because that's not exactly a fun ride. It doesn't feel too good. It might cause a little bit of imminent injury. All right. Deadly force may not be used solely to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect. So you can't shoot somebody in the back just because they're running away, right? You can't shoot a car just because it's leaving. That's important. Firearms may not be discharged solely to disable a moving vehicle. Specifically, firearms may not be discharged at a moving vehicle unless the person of the vehicle is threatening the officer or another person with deadly force by means other than the vehicle, or the vehicle is operated in a manner that threatens to cause death or serious physical injury to the officer or others. So that's this subsection 2 right here is what's important in this situation. So firearms may not be discharged solely to disable a moving vehicle, and firearms may not be discharged at a moving vehicle unless the vehicle is threatening the officer. Now, here's another caveat to that. The vehicle is operated in a manner that threatens to cause death or serious physical injury to the officer or others. So we've established what, being in fear of your life is. We've established what assault is. This is where that officer is covered. He very subjectively, along with every other officer that's on that scene and anybody that, knows a thing about a car, would say, yeah, if I get run over by a vehicle, that's operating the vehicle in a dangerous manner. Threatens to cause death or serious physical injury to the officer or others. No other objectively reasonable means to defense appear to exist, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. Firearms may not be discharged from a moving vehicle. Okay, so that's not what we're talking about here. But so this part right here, this may be an issue for that officer, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. I don't know if we go back to that video. Let's slow it down and play it. And warning, this is graphic. Let's see where the officer's options are.
No!
All right. Right here, coming into right behind the vehicle. I would say looking at the still, he appears to be about 4 or 5 feet in front of the vehicle. Like if you look at this force perspective right here, his head is the same size as his head, so they're pretty close to each other. So he's at the front of the vehicle. Now let's let it play.
No! Shit!
All right. That's when he fires his first shot. Let's go back.
No! No!
And I'll pause it. All right. At this point, he is on the hood of the car. She has hit him. He is on the hood of the car. His feet, if you look at it, are off the ground. So, yeah.
Shame! Oh my!
So in that case, the reason it might look like, oh, she wasn't directly in front of him, she moved to the side. She died and her hand slumped over and turned the wheel. That's the only reason the vehicle didn't go straight, is because he shot her. And at the time that he shot her, he was up on the hood of the car, it looks like. So you can't jump. You can't move out of the way if you're being drugged by a vehicle. Like, you might be able to push yourself off, but that's going to cause you injury as well. So the to the naysayers that would try to argue that he could have jumped out of the way, and going back to this this point right here, and no other objectively reasonable means of defense appear to exist, which includes moving out of the way of the path of the vehicle. So I would say moving out of the path of the vehicle is no longer an option once your feet have been taken off of the ground. Because what do we jump with? Our feet. I mean, unless I'm missing something, being hit by a car is not. She wasn't giving him a back rub, so she was using deadly force against the police officer. The police officer had no other means of retreat. Well, and granted, to the police officer's defense, it's not on him to retreat that situation. Those two officers had decided that they were legally detaining somebody for breaking the first litany of laws that we opened up with, right? She is obstructing process, which is against the law, and she is using her vehicle as a battering ram. The officer doesn't have to get out of the way and let her leave. Some would argue that the officer has a duty to the public not to let her leave, because she has now used a deadly weapon against him and is armed with a vehicle. She's driving around trying to intimidate and stop federal process from happening, and she's willing to back her threats up. So if I were in that situation and she got away and then turned around and ran my child over, I'd be pissed at the officers for not shooting her. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but that's how I see that situation. But let's look at the press conference from the, what is this? Chief of Police of Minneapolis.
Was the what can I share about the deceased? There is nothing to indicate that this woman was the target of any law enforcement investigation or activity.
She wasn't even going. What, like, she had this. This is why you need to mind your business, kids. Don't get into shit that's not your business.
This woman was in her car, and it appears then blocking the street,
which is illegal
because of the presence of federal law enforcement, which
is legal.
Obviously something that has been happening not just in Minneapolis but around the country.
Also legal.
She appears to be a middle-aged white woman.
Come on, guys. Why does it always have to be the middle-aged white woman liberal?
Just about a month ago, you said these unplanned and questionable tactics by federal agents would result in someone being killed.
Well, when you encourage your populace, like this mayor is about to do, to go and obstruct federal process, that's like just because a crowd of people encourage you to go do something stupid doesn't mean you should go do it. If you consistently foster the situation where ICE agents are attacked at alarming rates over and over again, they're having rocks thrown at them, people are shooting at ICE agents. Um, I don't find it surprising that someone would feel the need to block them. Um, Everything Tim Walz has said, everything this mayor has said, who should be, if Donald Trump can be indicted for inciting a riot by telling people to go peacefully protest at the Capitol, I think this gentleman should definitely be on the hook for this lady's death because he encouraged her to go do this.
At a press conference right here. Do you consider today's tactics in line with that, or do you just have a generic response to the fact that somebody is now dead?
Okay.
The question is that I had previously made several statements about being concerned about the tactics being employed.
Just for the record, he's talking about ICE going and conducting raids on illegal immigrants that have committed crimes in these great United States. So that's what he is concerned about, upholding the rule of law. He's a law enforcement officer, so he claims.
I am obviously very concerned that I have been told that a woman who was sitting in her car blocking the street and not the target of any enforcement activity is now deceased.
Why is it that you frame it as if she's just this poor lady and they just blew her out of her car? She tried to run them over. Did you forget that part? You seem to know every other detail about this situation except for the part that would make the public say, huh, I wonder why they shot her.
However, I do not know, to be clear, I do not know the exact circumstances of the shooting, but I would.
Yes, he does. He knows everything else surrounding this situation. He's been briefed. He doesn't want to defend the police officer who had a good shoot. And you'll see later on, his law enforcement brain is going to kick in and be like, well, this looks justifiable.
Tell you, in any professional law enforcement agency in the country, I think they would tell you it's obviously very concerning whenever there's a shooting into a vehicle of someone who's not armed. But it also
they're armed with the vehicle. He's high as a kite.
Is something that is possible. At times, it is justified.
If you drive your vehicle in the direction of a police officer, them shooting you is always justified.
But it is very concerning, and it's something that most law enforcement agencies in the country train very intensely to try and minimize the risk that law enforcement officers get placed into a situation that the need for deadly force would be necessary.
By not putting themselves in a place of risk, he means things like what? They're an inherently risky job. So walking around a vehicle it's now the officer's duty to make sure that the criminal doesn't try to run him over. And if he shoots the criminal for trying to run him over, then he's in the wrong. What are you trying to say, Brian?
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry. The question was any indication about the need. I guess getting back to the justification of this, I have not seen any information other than what I have communicated. Was she alone in the car? The question was if she was alone in the car. I know that I got there shortly after this call came in. I did not.
But he knows nothing about the call.
See anyone else with her while
he was on scene. He was on scene, and I promise you somebody's going to brief the chief of police there, Brian. Maybe everybody thinks that you're just completely incompetent and an idiot, but I know a little bit better. I know a little bit better about incident command. When the chief shows up, you tell the chief what the hell happened. But he doesn't know anything. He hasn't been told anything. Okay.
I was on the scene. However, I've since been told by our officers that have been with her the entire time that a spouse has arrived at the hospital.
Does he know how to answer a question? Was she alone in the vehicle? Yes or no? I don't know. Blah 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 blah. There's a spouse that's at the hospital. Let's try to overhumanize her a little bit more and sensationalize the public because we want a George Floyd riot 2.0, don't we?
You're just curious if you're thinking about contacting federal authorities to register your concerns about.
And then here's this jackwagon. I'm sorry,
but on the phone all morning.
This is I did her dirty. I've seen this lady, this sign language interpreter a lot. She is very, very good at her job. And it's actually funny how well she displays the fake outrage.
Morning. As soon as we learned about this, again, there were a series of priorities that we needed to go through. The first, of course, is to keep people safe and to help the victim in any way that we could.
So the law enforcement officer that almost got ran over, is that the victim he's talking about? I promise you it's not the victim that he's talking about. You don't refer to a suspect as a victim. They're not a victim. They're a victim of their own stupidity. They're not a victim because anybody did anything wrong or did anything against each other. That is 100% trying to frame it in a way that will incite violence against law enforcement because it isn't already enough of a problem, right?
The second was to get ICE off of the scene. There was the notion that ICE agents would be necessary to create a perimeter around the scene itself. They themselves were creating the kind of dysfunction and chaos that they claimed to.
No, jackass. You're the one creating dysfunction and chaos by not working with federal authorities and trying to frame it like you're some social justice warrior fucking hero because you want to let people come into our country illegally and stay there and commit fraud against us.
To be trying to help with. And so the message that we delivered very clearly was to make them leave. Now, beyond leaving the scene, they should also leave our city and our state.
They're not going to.
You know, we do work, our chief does work, our sheriff does work every single day to keep people safe in our city and in our state.
Obviously not.
Crime.
Obviously, they don't do enough because if they did stuff to keep people safe, this lady wouldn't have been there. She would have been contacted by local law enforcement for blocking the road. And maybe because it wasn't ICE, she wouldn't have tried to run local law enforcement over. But she's a liberal, so they feel entitled to every inch of the road. I find it very hard to have sympathy for this lady. I know the type of person that would feel the need to go and block roads with her car, despite, the right or wrong of the situation. The type of person that would feel that compelled to go do something is not right in the head. They live in an alternate reality where the rules don't apply to them, and they have this notion that if I scream loud enough, somehow I'm right. This is just her way of screaming loud enough. She's screaming louder, and now she won't be there to hurt anybody else. I think this officer should get a medal, honestly. She saved us all from having to hear that lady on the internet. There's no, I don't know. There's no part of me that feels bad for her. I feel bad that the people around her are going to have to deal with this. And, rightfully so, they're probably going to be angry. If this happened to my wife, I would be angry. But not at not at the officers who did their job. Be angry at my wife for putting herself in such an ignorant position that I'm left without the woman I love. My kids are left without a mother because she wanted to fight for people that came to our country illegally and have broken laws, and she wanted to fight against the people that were trying to keep her safe. So I try to frame this in my mind on how I would feel if I were her husband, because it sounds like she has a spouse. That's how I would feel. I would be very mad at the situation. I would be very upset that my wife would be that dumb to do that. And I would seriously question myself on as to why would you do that? Why would you block the road? What are you accomplishing? Nothing. Why would you try to run over a police officer? What did you accomplish besides leaving our children without a mother? I, I don't know how we can move forward as a country if half of the country wants to kill us. They want to kill our voices. They want to censor us. They want to kill our law enforcement officers. So the people protecting us, I don't know. I don't know. Shout out to leotards. Uh, he probably knows his wife is out of control and can't control her either. Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, it doesn't change the fact. I mean, he obviously probably loves his wife, right? And I'm just trying to put myself in his shoes as to how I would feel, and that's what I came up with. I would feel betrayed almost if my wife did something like this. You know, and it's not to pick out one anecdote, right? It's to point out that this lady probably thought that what she did was worth it. She probably honestly thought, because of how much the media talks about this, that what she was doing was protecting people, protecting her neighbors. When it's framed over and over again, oh, we're just protecting, these people contribute to our community and they're our neighbors and their families and we're ripping them apart. It leads people like this to do violent things to stop that from happening, because what person wouldn't fight for what they believe in, right? And we have basically accepted the fact that violence can be committed against us and we should do nothing about it. Well, that lady found out the hard way and is going to be in a forever box very soon because of it. And I blame city leaders like this gentleman right here. I blame Governor Tim Walz for constantly trying to shut things down, and that's what it is. That's really what it is. They're trying to shut arguments down by using the racism card. Oopsies. Turn that off. They're trying to shut argument down by using the racism card. They're trying to shut arguments down by just dehumanizing people. And the consequence that you get from that is when you create an us versus them mentality and say that one group of people are victims and the other group of people are evil, you're gonna want to watch out, because what you're gonna cause is gonna be unfathomable. And then let's go over this one. I agree it wasn't worth her life, but we have agency to decide what and when we do fight. She could have simply wrote a letter to the state, local, and White House with her grievances. Absolutely. She could have. She absolutely could have. But that's the issue, right? They're not interested in having a conversation about things. They're not interested in in anything, they don't see that as a solution. They see violence and resistance as the solution. And there's going to be a point where people are going to act on those urges to go hurt people. And this was one of those situations. She wanted to stop federal officials from doing their job because she thought that they were just, she thinks they're the Gestapo. Tim Walz, her governor, she probably voted for him, said just as much. They're the Gestapo. Well, what do you do with the Gestapo? What would anybody here do if you genuinely thought the Gestapo was out to get you? You'd create an underground resistance, baby. As you should. But I don't know. I don't know what is to come out of this. I know how this is going to be framed. But let's watch the last little bit of the video, because I was hearing some people saying that they didn't even go to try to help her, that they just shot her and left her. So let's let this video play out, and I have a couple of different videos.
God! What the f? What the f? You just f? What the f did you do?
He shot a lady that was trying to run him over. That's what he did.
You are f criminals! You're f criminals! What the f? What the f? What the actual f?
There's always got to be someone screaming.
You are f insane! What did you do?
No, that wasn't the video. Let's see. See if I can't find this.
The first time that we're really hearing some more details from law enforcement.
Yeah, we know go.
See the video, the layer too much content. Let people get a lot of
Is the Honda Pilot that we should be focused on here? It's about a purplish reddish color here. So let's take a look.
Agent walk what's being said is not that that's right.
All right. There
okay. Thanks for letting us know. Sorry. So there is some audio to this, and if you go online, you can see. So now you can see the vehicle is crashed.
Yep.
And according to law enforcement here in the Twin Cities, that woman was shot, and then the vehicle drove into the snow there, as you can see. So this is kind of the aftermath right now. This video is turned the other way. We want to just show you what's happening. We didn't have a lot on the front end of this, and every time we show video, we kind of like to show prior the incident and then as much after. But this is what we have, so we wanted to show it to you in full.
And this is also the first time that we are seeing this as well. So we're kind of just watching this together along with you. But as you can see there, you see all these houses and these homes along Portland Avenue. We know that this is a residential area. So again,
So leotards, I don't think anything is ever going to wake anybody up that is that fundamentally broken. They have a narrative in their head, and they're going to run. It doesn't matter how much. It's very easy to convince somebody of something, and lie to them. It's very hard to convince somebody that they've been lied to. But you were talking about de-escalation practices. There's not a whole lot of de-escalation between, being 3 feet away from a car and getting run over, right? It's not like, she pulled a gun out and was, the whole thing happened within 30 seconds. And it'll take hours and days to try to explain every single detail of every decision that was made. And there's still not going to be people that are happy about it. I just laid out how everything in here was, the officers were 100% legal, and the victim or the suspect I fell for it too. The victim, the suspect, committed countless crimes on her way to the grave.
We don't know much about this woman, just that she's 37 years old. We don't know if she was an observer, because that's the thing too. So
right here, this little bag right here, that looks like a BLS bag or a first aid kit. They went to go try to help her. The cop was just too good of a shot and domed her.
These ICE agents were out there, and they say observers were out there as well. These are people that are just documenting what is going on. And so we know from the police chief's perspective, he just says that he knows that she was a woman that was.
And to anybody that's out there that's documenting, go for it. Document, hold public officials accountable, right? I fully support that. But when you interfere and try to stop them from doing their jobs, you start losing that. Oh, I'm a First Amendment right, blah 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 blah. You cannot stand in front of them. You cannot park your car perpendicular to the road so they can't get around you. You fight the power at the ballot box, not on the streets.
In her car, and she was blocking the road.
Yeah.
And that's about all the information that we know.
Okay, right. You let me know when this is played out completely or how close we are. Oh, there's a couple minutes left because I just wanted to also read, because we haven't had a chance to do this, the statement from Christy Nome, the Department of Homeland Security, if I could as well. Do you want me to do that right now, Ryan, or do you want me to wait just a minute? Okay. Okay, so let's just kind of let's just watch this for a moment. Again, this is the aftermath.
God, their static is loud. This lady's just walking up and down the street, antagonizing cops. I mean, it's her right to do so, but all right, I think that was.
Okay, so this is a loop now of what happened. If we could just hang on for just 1 second.
Let's watch it one more time.
A little traction here. Let's kind of watch this, and.
So he's trying to he's trying to get her out of the car. She's put it in drive, which her putting the car in drive while he's reaching in like that, conducting a lawful stop, that's also assault with a deadly weapon. Just for the record, like, his life is not in danger yet because she hasn't floored it and taken off, but he's hanging on to that car.
We'll let you just watch.
And see what I mean? Let's run it back just a little bit, because that car, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but that car right there was over here, just in front of this car. And that's how hard she hit that car. You see what I mean? The car's over there. Watch it. Bam! Pushes it all the way out there like that.
Yeah, and you saw the shot fired there by the officer on the left-hand side of your screen. So
this wasn't I'm just going to oopsie daisy scoot my way out of here. I don't want to be around these ICE officers. No, I want to run this guy over. This is an act of domestic terrorism is what this is. This person does not like what's politically going on and is going to use violence to express herself. Well, we know what we do with terrorists.
Read through the statement that the Trump administration had put out just a short time ago. I believe we have that up if we want to take that. Today, ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking. ICE officers and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. And ICE
Yeah. It's crazy how we've gotten to a point where this is what's happening.
Officer, fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers.
New Year?
Anyway, that is all I got for you today. I appreciate you sticking around. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how this is gonna play out. We might have another BLM riot type thing going on in Minneapolis. It might spread everywhere. We don't know. All I can say is it's going to be hyperbolized. It's going to be sensationalized. There's going to be people on both sides that are going to be calling for um, trying to have their opinions heard. But I don't know where this leaves us, right? This has happened several times. Someone has tried to ram an ICE officer. The ICE officer shoots them, as they should. I just don't know. But on that note, you guys have a good one. Peace.